Hello, welcome to HITC Sport. Alright, Chinese football is currently stuck in the bottom of a sewer pipe. After emerging as this annoying global superpower with bags of money to entice some of Europe's greediest footballers, they seemingly just existed as a tool to expose just what top-class footballers actually have the ambition and morals of a sweaty pig. Good Christ, Chinese football has purely just existed as a constant temptation for any footballer looking to double his bank account, but recently, the bubble burst. Salaries have been cut by about 80%, so finally, when this utter collapse happened before Christmas, with the league's reigning champions even going out of business, I bet you all wondered which players would stick it out in China for the love of the culture and who would immediately pack up their bags and return to Europe. Yeah, I know we're only in goddamn March, but still, let's take a look at the best players to immediately quit that continent in 2021. Right, let's go. Eder Sao Paulo. Yeah, starting off the list, first we have good old 34-year-old Brazilian-born striker Eder. Was he any good? He was okay. He's a bit like the Italian Gary Taylor-Fletcher. Okay, to be fair, that's incredibly disrespectful to a lad with nearly 30 Italy caps to his name. And to be fair, the guy used to bag double-digit figures in Serie A for Sampdoria and then score 14 goals across 3 seasons for Inter Milan. The guy was a decent centre-forward, although after the other Eder, the Swansea flop, bagged the winning goal of the Euro 2016 final, this guy will now just always be remembered as the other one. Anyway, after utterly exploding in China with 32 goals in 62 matches for Jiangsu Suning, the guy now no longer has a club after his team just decided to stop existing, leaving him like a homeless stray dog living on the side of a Chinese motorway. So he's finally returned to Brazil via Sao Paulo for the first time since leaving in 2005, and considering he's since denounced his nationality by switching to Italian citizenship, I wonder what sort of reception he's going to get from the fans. Miranda Sao Paulo. Yeah, I realise Miranda has an unfortunate name, and he's lucky he grew up in Brazil, because Christ above, try and enroll in a secondary school in County Cork with that name, and you'll probably have leftover sandwiches chucked at your head at lunch. I'm not saying that's right, but good Christ, call yourself De Souza or Philo. Miranda? Really? Anyway, make no mistake about it, as the centre half for Atletico Madrid under the tutelage of Diego Simeone, the guy was another rock, forming that rock-solid partnership with Diego Godin, playing nearly 180 times for the club, winning a league title, reaching a Champions League final. The guy also swallowed nearly 60 caps for Brazil. I maintain, if you'd stuck him in that World Cup semi-final defence against Germany in 2014, as opposed to the clown with a brain made of shampoo, then nobody would be scoring 7 goddamn goals that day. Anyway, the guy is currently 36 and recently quit Inter Milan for a Chinese payday, joining Jiangsu Suning on a 3-year deal. Good Christ, he and his family probably spent that afternoon doing cartwheels around the house. They'd hit the jackpot. Surely he had lame stiffer than a stale hot dog, and honestly was about as much use as a condom made of cheese, but 3 years of fat wages stuffed down his throat? Great! What he didn't foresee was that last month the entire club, the champions of Chinese football, would be dissolved, leaving the guy unemployed on the couch. So he's recently just signed an 18-month contract with Sao Paulo out in Brazil. Poor Miranda. This is a guy who'd probably gladly find the Jiangsu president and stick him in a bin. Graziano Pelle Parma. Yeah, Graziano Pelle is finally back in Europe. You'll remember him as the Italian goal machine who battered in a bunch of goals under Ronald Koeman for both Feyenoord and Southampton before sticking his international ambitions down a toilet bowl by agreeing to quit Europe for Shandong Luneng in 2016 at just 30 years of age. I called him a goal machine, but let's be honest, this fella was a fairly standard mid-table centre forward. On par with someone like Rocky Santa Cruz. But by moving to China, he suddenly became the world's 7th highest paid footballer, earning £350,000 per week. Really, for a guy who was wrestling for a starting berth with the walking tub of Monster Munch that was Charlie Austin? I mean, come on! Anyway, to be fair, Pelle could have stuck his feet up on the couch and just counted his money. But to be fair, he has got stuck in and did manage 63 goals over 5 seasons, with half the Chinese fanbase probably thinking this was the same guy who'd won 5 World Cups. No, that fella's 80 years old and probably needs help standing up in the shower. Anyway, after the Chinese bubble burst and Pelle realised that his £13.7 million annual salary was no more, that he'd have to take a pay cut of 80%, foregoing 11 million quid every year, the guy instantly packed up his stuff and signed for Parma on a 6-month deal. Yeah, this fellow would rather rot in the Serie A relegation zone, playing alongside Cardiff rejects and walking foreheads, than to stay in China 1 minute longer without the promise of a fat suitcase of cash. Hulk Atletico Mineiro. We will never know how good Hulk was. This guy who, yes, looked like another world-class goal machine in Japan, Portugal, Russia and China. Good Christ, 306 goals and 579 career appearances is utterly insane. His grandkids are going to assume this guy was a yearly Ballon d'Or contender, but he'll probably omit the fact that he was scoring those goals against goalies with wrists made of syrup. With a name like Hulk, I'm convinced had he come to Europe with a club like Chelsea or Barcelona, the guy would be a marketing superpower. The amount of shirts he'd be able to flog with his name on the back, the amount of adverts he could have fronted for both Nike and Adidas. Good Christ, stick this fella, the guy with the biceps Arnold Schwarzenegger, a guy who could probably lift a fridge up 3 flights of stairs, stick him on a billboard and he'd be an utter cash cow. Anyway, yes, he was one of Chinese football's best players, smashing in 77 goals from the wing over a 5-season stint. But again, after the threat of pay cuts, he's since quit in a huff, returning to Brazil on a 2-year contract with Atletico Mineiro. Weirdly, the first Brazilian club this fella has ever represented. Odianaga Gallo Al-Shabaab. Yeah, remember the news stories littered across 2020? How Shanghai, Green and Shenhua were so desperate to take Odion Gallo back from his loan spell at Old Trafford that they were willing to double his already insanely massive wages. To be fair, yes, this guy was a Watford dud who mostly resembled a Spanish omelette while stumbling about the Premier League park, but this guy was a lethal goal machine in China. 46 goals in less than 80 games for both Changchun Tai and Shanghai. But again, clearly this guy failed his audition in Manchester, was replaced by Edison Cavani, and so returned to a Chinese league deep in financially shambolic crisis, and so has instead signed for Al-Shabaab FC on a 2.5-year deal, out the backers of Saudi Arabia. But to be fair, he's probably still drinking pints of cash for breakfast. Stefan Al-Shaarawy, Roma. Lads, it was always mental that Stefan Al-Shaarawy had decided to quit Roma for Shanghai Shenhua in 2019. The guy was only 26 years old. He's a talented Italian winger who was another teenage wonder kid while at AC Milan. So choosing to sell out for a move to Asia in 2019, it just smacked of greed ruling over ambition. Anyway, don't worry, because in January he returned to Rome on a free transfer and already smacked it a goal against Shakhtar Donetsk in the Europa League. Don't worry lads, after a 2-year holiday, lifting trophies about as meaningless as my existence and having bags of cash shoved in his ears, the guy is finally back competing at a dignified level. Salomon Rondon, CSKA Moscow. Okay, to be fair, Salomon Rondon hasn't officially closed the door on Chinese football forever because he's only on loan, but still, the guy clearly wants out of Asia. To be fair, it was a weird move anyway. In 2019, the guy just smacked home 12 goals on loan at Newcastle. The Geordies utterly adored the man and were begging the ownership to make his deal permanent. But even if he didn't want to stay in a dead-end job working in a stale environment under the incoming Steve Bruce, then lads, I think he'd impress enough to get himself a Premier League move elsewhere. But no, he decided to follow Rafa Benitez to the backers of China. Again, utterly setting his ambition down a sewer pipe to sign for Italian professional for a big bag of cash. Was it worth it? Well, considering he scored 5 goals in his first season and reduced himself to annual relegation battles, playing under a world-class manager who again was only there for the fat paycheck, it was probably just a hollow and soulless existence, playing alongside a bunch of lads who probably only discovered the offside rule in 2016. Anyway, after 3 years in Russia with both Rubin Kazan and Zenit St. Petersburg, the guy's finally gone back to that league. At 31, signing on loan for CSKA Moscow. The Venezuela's already got 2 goals, so he's doing well. Marek HAMSIK, IFK Goteborg. Yeah, this is utterly ridiculous. Marek HAMSIK could never have been a one-club man in Napoli because the Slovakian playmaker obviously began his career at Slovan Bratislava before moving to Brescia, but still, it definitely felt like he was a one-club man. He was at Napoli for 12 goddamn years, playing over 500 games, scoring over 120 goals. Honestly, he looked like he was going to stay at that club for life before probably being buried in a coffin under the ground. That's what it felt like, but no, his washed-up legs finally left Napoli in 2019, but for Italian professional, where again, it was just an utter waste of time. Lads, he was there 2 years and only ever scored 5 goals against a bunch of putty defences. I mean, come on HAMSIK, where's your dignity and pride? After utterly flopping like a stale egg sandwich, this fella, a guy with 126 international caps and who will be playing at the Euros this summer, this fella still couldn't command himself an actually ambitious move to a top-class club. No, the best he could do was quit China for IFK Goteborg in Sweden. Although, to be fair, because he broke his contract in March, the Allsvenskan was one of the few leagues where the transfer window was still open. But still, could he not find anything else? Anyway, he's only there on a short-term deal until August, clearly to get some playing time ahead of the Euro 2021, but really, playing out the backers of Sweden in a mostly Swedish dressing room, this guy, a Serie A veteran, he'll stick out like a sore thumb in comparison to a bunch of Swedish part-time mechanics. Alex TEIXEIRA, Al-Hilal. Lads, if Jurgen Klopp had his way, then Alex TEIXEIRA would have been signed by Liverpool instead of Mo Salah. Lads, let that sink in. Salah is the Egyptian king. His arrival was the catalyst for a period of utter dominance. The guy's world-class levels of hunger and ambition has seen him banging 119 goals in 190 games for the club, seen as probably Liverpool's most effective forward of the Premier League era. Compare his work rate and drive to that of Alex TEIXEIRA, an undeniably talented Brazilian winger, sure, but lads, he's just spent the last 5 years drowning in money for Jiangsu Suning. He's 31 now, so it's official. This guy's wasted the best years of his career, watching him melt away like a plate of lasagna left in the rain. Sure, he spanked his 72 goals in 150 games for Jiangsu Suning, and sure, he lifted the Chinese Super League title last year, but again, that club no longer exists now, and according to reports, he's now about to pen a deal at Al-Hilal in Saudi Arabia. Well, let's not forget, the Brazilian was in the process of applying for a Chinese passport. Lads, the guy was going to be making his debut for the Chinese national team aged 31. Well, since his big fat salary of 15 million quid per year has been ripped away, he's since scrapped those plans, deciding to stay Brazilian, and he's off to sign a lucrative 2-year deal worth 30 million euros in the Middle East. Lads, if this greedy money grabber decided to declare for China based on the size of his wallet, then that would just make a complete and utter mockery of international football. Anyway, that's it. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think? Are there any other top class footballers who've recently quit China? But also, let me know in the comments, who do you think are the next ones to go? I mean, Christ above, look at Oscar. You know, that former Chelsea wonder kid? He's been out in China for 4 years now. But this guy is currently being told he's going to have to take a pay cut of 85%. So really, is he really going to want to stay and play in a pudding league against pretty terrible defenders? Sure, it's a nice ego boost when he scores a hat-trick every match, but come on, he's clearly only there for the money. So let me know in the comment section below, what players do you think are going to quit China next? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and as always, I'll talk to you in a while.